Good morning and welcome back, everybody. Thanks for joining us again for another exciting episode of Breakthrough REI podcast. As usual, sitting in the pilot seat is Sandy McKay. How's it going?
I'm awesome. Yourself?
Not bad, not bad. It's casual day for us.
Hey, I know every day is going to be casual for you soon, I think. So it's COVID life, right? We don't need to dress up in suits too much. So t-shirt day.
Right. No, I'm not in my office anymore because I gave all of my desks away just to sort of get rid of the clutter and stuff. And we're getting rid of a lot of our furniture and, in anticipation for the move. So here I am just down in the basement. The sound quality is probably not that great. I can hear some echo bounce back. So hopefully it's not too bad.
Well, we're trialing for a new country, a new setup soon with you, right? So that should be exciting for everyone listening in. We're going to be live streaming from some different countries soon enough.
Yeah, it is. And next time we talk, we'll be there. So this will be the last one from this location. So we're excited about that. What's going on with you, Sandy?
Nothing really, to be honest. Nothing to top that. Not moving countries, not moving towns or anything even. So just same old, working away and having some fun in this industry. That's about it. Nothing really new to report this week.
Okay, well, I mean, you always have some exciting stuff happening, so I'm sure next time we'll hear something good.
We're buying some stuff and things like that. I'll see if we maybe in the next 2 weeks I'll have an exciting one to share. Actually,
right on.
Give me a couple weeks.
Everybody listening knows the drill. You should go over to Breakthrough REI podcast. There you can listen to all of our past episodes, download them, and enjoy them with your friends and family. Share all the information with people that you know, and you can get our free gift there as well, Sandy, right?
The ultimate strategy for building wealth through real estate. Yeah, and get on our email list with that. Never miss out on a show. Get updates about what we're up to and things we got going on. Maybe some live events and that eventually coming soon. Property tours, all that sort of fun stuff.
Yeah, we're going to be continuing our property tours as well too. We're doing them virtually every month or so. Maybe we'll start to pick those up as well going forward. But we are still doing them, and people signed up on the list are seeing when those dates are. So yeah, please join us for those. And go over to iTunes, leave us a rating and review. We really appreciate that. It helps us get out there to more people and share all of the knowledge that all of our guests have with more people, right? Because that's the goal, to share all of this. That's why we started it, to educate people on REI and let people know that it's not, what is it, Sandy? It's not simple. It's not easy, but it's simple.
It's not easy, but it can be quite simple, or it can be simpler when you have the knowledge and skills, and it doesn't have to be difficult. That's for sure. It doesn't have to be complex, but it's definitely not necessarily easy either.
For a guy that can't even get the saying right, I've managed to do something right. So there's got to be something to that saying. Okay, so anyway, I'm really excited to have our guest that we have on. He was our second guest that we ever had on the podcast. I don't even know how long ago that was, 7 years ago or something like that. Yeah. And reoccurring. I mean, we did little bits called the Michael Minute for a while, where he would come on and just do a little tidbit segment for us with some relevant info. But really excited to have him back. He's here to talk about his book, among other things. So super excited to have you back. Michael Dominguez, welcome to the show.
Fantastic. Thanks for bringing me back. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, this is exciting. I'm gonna read a quick intro for you, and then we'll get into asking some questions. For those of you that don't know Michael's an award-winning sales rep with Remax Jazz Inc., Brokerage, founder of Doors and Wealth Real Estate Group, team of realtors focused on educating and assisting people in residential real estate. Since becoming a realtor in 2008, he has realized the opportunities in real estate investing, bought his first investment property, proceeded to add to his portfolio for over 10 years now, and he's completed over 300 investment property transactions. Just helped many people become millionaires through real estate, and he is now a newly published author with just launching his book, The the Armchair Real Estate Millionaire. So we're going to talk about that and get to know a bit more about that book and where you can get that and all that sort of stuff. So yeah, awesome to have you here. We're pumped to share more about your story and learn more about what you've been up to.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to just catching up with you guys. It's I knew you guys when, so that's going to be kind of fun to talk about, a little reminiscing as well.
Well, fun fact too is my first deliberate income property, Michael helped me buy it. So
we can both be on that same boat. Same with me.
yeah, that's right.
That's right.
So,
I met Sandy and Kate when they were, I think it was at a Los Cabos Mexican restaurant, and they were giving me this vision of where they wanted to go, and these young kids with no experience, but they were so determined. I was really impressed with them, and they did exactly what they said they were going to do, which is pretty awesome. So,
well, we know Kate drove that shit mostly, but yeah, it's been fun. That was we're looking at we're getting that's close to 10 years. I'm not sure how long exactly, but maybe eight or 9 years, maybe.
Yeah.
What's funny is I remember too something about the first time you guys went out together. I remember this story where you were in Michael's convertible Mustang and you had to stop on the side of the road and pick up a couch or something like that, wasn't it? What was the story? What happened there?
That was also Kate's fault, I think.
If I think it was actually podcast number 4, which I think was, as you said, the second guest. And if anyone ever wants to go back to it, it's you actually have a photo of the furniture in the convertible, and somehow we've managed to get all of us in there. I now have a Corvette convertible, and I was tempted, just for old time's sake, to do the podcast from inside the convertible, because I did my last one from inside the Mustang. So
That's right. I remember now.
Yeah.
You know what? Just for old time's sake, why don't you go pick up an old couch off the side, throw it on the new Corvette? What do you think about that?
Yeah, but the problem is that the Corvette, as great as it is, it doesn't have a back seat. So, like, not that the Mustang back seat was any good, but at least there was a little bit of room to put a full size couch, right? So,
and me somehow I was back there somewhere too. Somehow I don't know how that made sense, but we worked it out. We flipped the couch. We were flipping more than just real estate that day, so that was fun.
That's funny. Yeah, no, it was good. So anyway, and Rob, Rob, what was it? Was it Elgin was the first property we bought together? It was a student rental, and that's
right. Yeah. And then we sold it a little while later, and I remember the person that bought it, because we have still a relationship with each other, and he calls that place his cash cow. So that always makes me happy.
Yeah, you only regret the ones you sell, I think, or don't buy, I think. So yeah.
Exactly. That's what they say. So enough about us, though. Let's talk about you. Let's talk about how you got started.
Yeah, well, it's I was a little older than you guys when I got started in the real estate game. I was in my, I don't know, about 40 or so when I got really started. Actually, I don't know if it was necessarily an aha moment, but when I was in my teenage years, in my early 20s, I had this vision of being a multi-millionaire, and I was very entrepreneurial. But then fast forward, 10, 15 years, and sort of life gets in the way. You get a responsible job, you get a wife, you have a child, and all of a sudden you're sort of stuck in the rat race. Then, before you know it, the clock turns and you've hit 40, and you say, "What the hell happened?" And so it was actually while looking for a home here in the Durham region that my realtor, who was also a manager, sort of said, "Hey, why don't you think about investing in real estate or becoming a realtor?" And so after much deliberation, I said, "All right, let me consider that." And I eventually got my license. And my back in the old days, I used to help franchisees buy franchises. And so I just gravitated towards the investors right away because I was speaking to my people, and that's sort of how it got going. And I started helping a few people making some real money. And I thought, holy crap, these guys aren't very bright. I could do that too. And then sure enough, I started buying my first couple of investment properties. The reality is that I did what everyone told me I was supposed to do. is I was buying these undervalued properties in secondary markets and secondary neighborhoods, and just buying these crappy properties. And even after I fixed them up, I was having a real challenge with tenant profile. And that was sort of what led me to where I am today, where I started saying, you know what, if I buy a nicer property in a nicer area, I can get some good tenants and make this a whole lot easier. And that's sort of how it evolved.
And so you started out in Durham region as well, right? Oshawa? Was that your first?
Yeah, well, actually, my very first property I bought was, believe it or not, a sixplex in Coburg. And you know, again, I'd like to think that I kind of zigged while everyone else zagged. All these people that are coming on your show, they always talk about how they're buying, you know, all these, you know, these construction deals and building and severing and all those things. I started with a sixplex, and you know, I was thinking I was going to get multis. I just decided I didn't like them, and it was buying those great suburban properties in great neighborhoods that's where I started going. So all my first properties I bought, I've essentially sold, and I've just got a portfolio now of properties that I like.
And those are, are they, I know duplexes for sure are in there. Is there anything else but duplexes, or have you really just narrowed it right down to those nice duplexes where I know you can get great tenants in those all day long, right?
All day long. I've got a 9plex through a joint venture, but I'm not the active. Well, I'm one of the active partners, but I'm not the one doing the property management. But other than that, I've just got my duplexes left, and I've got a dozen of them, and yeah, they're doing really well. And you know, one thing I can share is, you know, everyone, you know, I'm sure we've all seen the stories of other investors that have had issues with their tenants over the course of the last year and a half with COVID. And we went 0 months of missed rent payments, and we had 0 months of vacancy through the entire pandemic. And if anything, if a tenant did move out, we then raised the rent by 10 to 25%. So, you know, it's a good position to be in when we're spending on our dozen properties or so 4, 5, 6 hours a month, and that's pretty much all we're spending on them now because it's just maintenance.
Awesome. And you know, I think you talk a lot about that tenant first, kind of thinking about the tenant first when you're looking at properties. Is that, or can you talk a bit about that? How you kind of how do you analyze deals for yourself and with that tenant first you know, thought process?
Yeah, this is something that I wish I'd come up with this originally, but I started to focus on, instead of looking for the deal wherever it is in the world, I started thinking about what type of tenant I wanted to rent to, and then finding a property that tenant would want to live in. And so I was finding properties in great neighborhoods and quality neighborhoods, and I'd find a good quality property where the entire street and neighborhood was in a good condition as well, and then allowed me to find those quality tenants. And then you can hold on to it for a long period of time. And in real estate, like it's funny how so much talk on a buy and hold investment. Everyone says, you got to make it on the buy. You got to make it on the buy. You know, that's one of these things that everyone just accepts as being normal and accepted. But I can tell you that I've bought properties at retail value, and I've held on to them for 10 years. And if I sold them today at retail value, I do okay with that. And if, you know, so what if I overpaid the property by $10,000 or $20,000? If I'm up $500,000, I'm okay with that.
I think it just comes down to simplifying it. I think, which I think is a lot of the basis of your book, which we'll get into it a little bit later here in the show, because it just simplifies it, right? I think that's what a lot of newer investors, especially, they maybe don't know which angle, which path they're going to go down. They're getting all these different shiny objects thrown at them, and they're probably, a lot of cases, you know, I think we all see that, as they're really making it way too difficult on themselves, and trying to get away from the easy path, make everything so complex when it really doesn't need to be, does it?
Yeah, you know, there's going to be listeners on this broadcast that their goals are to be full-time investors, and their goal is to basically change everything about their lives to invest in real estate. But for myself and many other people, this was meant to be a part-time job that would make me a millionaire or a multimillionaire. And honestly, if you think of it like a side hustle, and that's really what it was, because in my case, I was a full-time realtor. I was able to buy these properties on the side and still maintain my 9-to-5 job, and it's changed my life. And it hasn't taken that much time out of my day-to-day life, and it's cut maybe 10 years out of my work life as a result of that. So these 3 to 5 hours a month, maybe even 6 or 8 hours in a bad month, has saved me 10 years of working life. That's okay.
Mm. The other thing too, I think, is that people, like when they're buying, they really can only compare with the climate that they're in at the time. So you look at everything that's available and compare them to each other and try to pick the best one. When take me back 5 years and I'll buy all 6 of them instead of analyzing and picking the one that just slightly, scrapes by the others in the spreadsheet, right?
Well, sure, but again, I don't have an unlimited amount of money and ability to qualify, so I'd love to buy them all, but yeah, the reality is I can't, and so why? Like, I see these people that are buying a property in Northern Ontario and a property in Manitoba and a property, just because they're getting these great deals, and so become, you guys are both great at this. You become experts in your local markets, and you just, it just makes sense when it's all said and done. You find you create your profile of the type of property you want to find, and an avatar of the type of tenant that you're looking for. And then amazingly enough, properties just pop up that meet those criterias, and it just makes all the sense in the world.
What is your criteria now, or what has it evolved over time to become what it is now? Maybe when you're looking at a property, what are the specific things you're looking for?
Yeah, well, the first thing I'm looking for is as simple as this. It's a quality property in a quality neighborhood. And the kind of property I'm looking for in the Ontario market is that 1,000 square foot brick bungalow built in the 1960s. It could be 50s or 70s or something like that, something post-war, with the ability of in Ontario, you can add a secondary suite in the basement. And now some markets, I just did a podcast actually in Australia, and so their auxiliary or their secondary houses are in many cases granny suites. They're off to the side of the house, but whatever it is, in the footprint of that lot, getting 2 dwelling units where you have 2 normal families, normal individuals that have jobs, that have income, that have credit score, that are assets to the community, and then we rent to those people. And so I always make a joke that if I took my DeLorean 15 years in the future into some of my neighborhoods that I own properties, they're going to look very much the same as they do right now. I'm not looking for some up and coming neighborhood that may or may not be successful. I don't want to have a property where every house around me is run down and shabby, because even if I do fix my place up, all of my neighbors are going to be rougher, and I can't attract or keep the tenants that I want to have. I'm just buying in nice residential neighborhoods that in 15 years are going to be just as desirable, or maybe even more desirable than they are today. I am looking for markets where we are seeing the right market fundamentals. That's so imperative in investing. And what I mean by that is properties in neighborhoods where there's a growing GDP, a growing job base, growing population, and then that's leading to increased rent demand, increased rent prices, and eventually that leads to increased prices of the homes themselves. And those are the kind of markets that I want to invest in. Don't put me in some Northern Ontario mining town that hasn't grown in population in 25 years. Give me a nice suburban home on a good city like Toronto, and I'll do well with that.
So I guess that the answer sort of covers this too. But I mean, when you're talking about sort of, a lot of people want to move up and into the multis, and you've sort of decided to stay more into this other duplexes and things like that, right? For reasons that you've already mentioned. But could you not sort of find the same thing in the multis where there were nice properties that you would want to live in yourself? And why have you sort of steered away from that?
Yeah, again, I zigged where a lot of people zagged, but in my experience, and we've done that with our multiplexes, and a lot of my clients have done the same thing with their multiplexes. But the reality is that like we've right now got a tenant in one of our units where husband and wife, the wife is actually, she's a recently graduated lawyer. She's making a 6-figure income and got a credit score probably around 800. That tenant is simply not going to, they can't afford a home. Whereas back 15 years ago, they'd be able to move into a house right away, but that's just not always the case now. I'm able to rent them a main unit of one of my bungalows, and they're more than happy to live there. They would simply not ever want to live in a 9-plex where there's a mix of tenant profile that's there. I just can't attract the A tenants in a multiplex in the same way that I can in my bungalows, where they've got a lovely 2 or 3 bedroom apartment, backyard, they've got parking, it's their own house, and that's the kind of tenants that I can attract in the in the single family. But the big boy properties, I just can't do it. And in my mind, I'm a pretty lazy person, and I'd rather not be dealing with tenants and BS. And I find that no matter how much you fix up that property and how much you're dealing with it, you're still going to get tenant conflicts. You're going to get calls from the police. Like it just happens. And no matter how much you edit out your tenants, things happen, and that just doesn't happen in my duplexes.
Or at least not as much. I mean, I guess it's more apt to happen where there's a more concentrated tenant base.
It's true. And
right?
Again,
more conflicts that can happen.
It's going to sound stereotypical, but a lot of times the tenants who are living in my duplexes, they think of it as their own home. They're doing gardening, they're maintaining the home, they're treating it as if it's their own house. In a multiplex, I find that they have more of a tenant mentality, and they call over every little thing there is. And when Susie is smoking pot outside, they call the police, and then there's that's what happens. It's just what happens. And you're absolutely right. The more tenants you have, the more problems you can have. But it's a profile tenant mindset that I find that is prevalent in multiplexes that are just not there in duplexes. And
you're right about that, because I just now that you mention it, my tenant sent me some pictures of this beautiful garden she planted. She bought a gate and installed it herself on the at the back door. So and I was really super impressed with that. Made my day.
It's not that complicated. You get a really quality property in a quality neighborhood, and you can find quality tenants. And it's funny how and we talk about and we know a lot of the same people. And how many people do we know that have made their first $1 million in duplexes, but because it's so boring and so easy, they end up saying, well, let me go for the big boy properties, and they do a development deal. And one of the things that I love hearing is the rags to riches story. And everyone applauds at the end, and they're all really happy, that they've persevered. But then I ask the question, I say, okay, I like how you made the riches the first time, and I like how you made riches the second time, but tell me about this part here where you lost all the money. And in almost every case, it was a development deal, it was a partnership that went bad, it was a multiplex that just had cost overruns. Those are the ones that are a little bit higher risk, and it's a lot more exciting. But one of the classic lines I've heard before, and I'll say again, is I make my investments boring, and I love my life is exciting. And and that's the way I want to follow my mindset. It's just boring duplexes that just are cash cows. I'm okay with that.
Well, let's get into that then. How do you make life exciting? What does Michael Dominguez do to make life exciting?
Well, honestly, the last
keep it PG. Keep it PG too. Come on.
Yeah. The last year and a half has sucked, but I like traveling, and I really enjoy traveling. And maybe I've got if I head out to Costa Rica, I've got a place I can crash. I don't know. We'll see. He hasn't actually invited me, so
we got a bathtub somewhere.
So, but my goal is I'm not really a Central America kind of guy. My goal is to live in California for 4 to 6 months a year, and then living here the rest of the time perhaps. But we travel a lot, and we just spend we basically doing what we want to do, and and it just gives you more choices. The convertible is a great choice of example of that. Had I not been investing in real estate, the idea of dropping 60K on a convertible just would seem like lunacy. But you've just got all these flexibilities to do what you want to do, and it's not a matter of I can't afford it. It's I can. It just doesn't make sense, and so in many cases I say sure, let's do it. Like we're next time you're out this way, Rob, or Sandy for that matter, as I'll show you all my landscaping in the backyard. I've been doing lots of things back here and turning it into my Caribbean oasis. So that's what I've been doing. So yeah, I'm enjoying myself. I'm enjoying myself. Yeah.
Yeah, one of the features I like most, I've been to your house a couple times. One of the features I like most is the pizza. They just deliver right across the fence into your backyard.
Yeah, I remember that. I remember that too. I've witnessed that in person the one time. I love that.
I never actually. I used to joke I was going to put a. This was when I was a lot heavier actually too. I was joking that I was going to put a gate back there so I could just instead of walking all the way around the street. Yeah, just having the pizza delivered over the fence is kind of a fun thing. So yeah, you're overweight when.
Well, doesn't quite add to the Caribbean feel of the backyard right now, though.
No, it's good though. I'm enjoying it. But one of my goals this year is I want to do a road trip, and I was originally going to do it in May, but I'm waiting until more like in the fall. But I'm going to hopefully take my Corvette and drive along Route 66 from Chicago to California. So that's the kind of thing that I want to do. Checking out sites along the way and baseball games. And
I was going to say, you got to mix in some baseball games. I know you love to get around to the ballparks. Have you got to, you must have hit almost every park now, have you?
Yeah, well, I'm at 4. I would have had it if it hadn't been for this stupid thing. But I'm down to 4 parks I still need to see. And the problem is that parks retire, then new ones come up, right? So we're down to 3, but now the new Texas stadium where the Rangers play is new. So I got to head back to Dallas to watch a game there. So yeah, no, it's pretty exciting. My goal, actually, no, it's not true. I'm at 5. I have 5 stadiums I need to see, and so this year I'd like to knock off at least a couple of them. So if they let me out of the country, so.
What was the timeline for you on, because you talk about it being boring and stuff, and I think some people maybe the people that are thinking a little more aggressively might think, well, that's going to take too long if I do it that way. But yeah, I know looking back on the timeline, it's not that long. Like a little bit of patience can go a long ways in that. What was your timeline on when you actually started investing to today, I guess, where you really, if you wanted to, could probably do nothing really for a while or for much of life. Yeah. How long did that take you?
Yeah, there's a Bill Gates quote that I like to use, is that people tend to actually I've got it right up there. People tend to overestimate what you can do in 1 year and underestimate what you can do in 10 years. And so honestly, I mentioned this in my book, is that if you can obtain 3 duplexes, just 3. Like, we're not talking about a portfolio of 77 properties or anything crazy like that. 3 properties in an appreciating market that's growing about 4 to 5% per year, and you come up with a 20% down payment. Just the appreciation and mortgage pay down that you're going to see in that property will make the investor with over $1 million in net worth in 10 years. And that's, again, is that the be all and end all? Maybe not. Maybe it is. I don't know. But if you're 40 years old and you've got a lot of equity in your personal residence and you have the ability of adding 3 properties over the course of a decade, this part-time job that's a hell of a lot better than being an Uber Eats driver will make you a millionaire in 10 years. And that's a pretty good objective from my standpoint. And that's kind of what I followed, was a 10-year plan. And then at the end of 10 years, now in my case, I kind of went a little bit more aggressive. I got to the 12 properties, but yeah, it's now these properties are all just increasing in cash flow. And even though my cash flow wasn't great in the first few years, now we're seeing tenants moving out and then being replaced with tenants paying, in some cases, 20 to 40% more than what the prior tenant was paying. And so the cash flow just keeps getting better and better and better. And so now essentially I'm living what they call the cash flow zone, where all of the income I've got from my rentals plus some other ventures that I've got now exceeds what my monthly expenses are.
So yeah, 10 years is a very, very, very doable. I think, especially for, like you said, people that have some equity in their current home, to just take that out at 4%, let's say, as a round number. I mean, the growth in your portfolio and all that you can get on just by leveraging that alone is really almost a no-brainer for most people. Now, some people, younger people, let's say, maybe they don't have access to that home, or they haven't bought their first home yet, but there is a great way for them to get in, and we know that as house hacking. Can you talk a bit about what that model might look like if the 25-year-old that doesn't have any home yet and they're just trying to get in the game?
100%. And actually, I have a chapter in my book called the Millennial Prophet, and we talk just about the ability of house hacking, and that's sort of a cool new term for something that's been around for over 100 years. My mother and father-in-law, when they bought their home in the 1950s, they essentially house hacked when they bought their house, but it wasn't called that back then. So essentially, a house hack is where you live in one unit, and in some cases, it's in the inferior unit, but then you have a rental income in your same house, whether it's in a secondary suite, or in the case of my mother and father-in-law, it was a boarder or two. But whatever it takes, you're generating that rental income in the property, allowing you to be able to afford that home. And in Ontario, there are so many legal 2-unit dwellings that are available. The cool thing is that lenders really like duplexes. And so in many cases, if you've gone to your lender and you're only approved for a certain dollar value, and that dollar value is higher or is less than the amount that the duplexes are selling for, you may want to approach them again and sort of say, well, what if I had income of $1,700 a month on top of my current job and income, but this rental income was as one of the suites? Now what would I qualify for? And in many cases, you can qualify for a significantly higher amount with that extra rental income. And is this your dream house? No, probably not. But is this something that's going to get you started? Absolutely. And so as a younger person who's trying to get into the housing market, buying that bungalow, living in one unit and renting out the second is a great way to get you into the market. But even if you can't afford that, the one thing that is very common with a lot of people that are thinking about this strategy is they've got that mom and dad who've been living in their home for many, many, many years. They've got a crap load of equity, and yet they maybe don't have the skill set to want to become landlords and investing in properties. So if you do your homework and you do your research, and even if you have no money or very little money, it doesn't preclude you from spending a lot of time doing research and analysis, talking to people, understanding the industry, and then approaching your folks and essentially using the bank of mom and dad, and potentially as a joint venture partner, where this is a chance for them to build some wealth beyond what they're currently doing right now, and you get an opportunity to get into a house. There's always a way to get into that house. You just have to be creative. It's not like, when I was a kid, I could get my job and then get a mortgage pretty quick. That's unfortunately just not the case anymore. But the creative people are still being very successful. You guys are cases of that. You both were very creative in how you built your portfolios.
Well, I think the other thing too about talking to the parents is just keeping it simple, maybe, right? Like, I understand where you're coming from with that. It's like, but when you start to go to people that have been brought up one way to say, hey, don't worry about paying off your house like you've been told. Let's pull all that equity back out, all that money that you've put into it, and let's put it into something else. Because I've had this same conversation with my parents even, and they're just like, oh no, we like, they see what I'm doing, and I talk to them about it, but they're still, they and I learned from them, like, they were always buying little chunks of land, doing something and selling it off. So it's not like it's foreign to them. But the idea of accessing that capital or accessing that equity is very scary to a lot of people. So it's more, it might even help these younger people to just be simply like, hey, mom and dad, help me buy a house.
Yeah. Right? It's not the one thing before you might be afraid to approach your folks about this. This isn't like when when you ask to go into rep hockey or your dance recitals and spending thousands of dollars or borrowing $500 in college that you still haven't paid back. This is potentially something that's going to, a lot of these guys were planning on giving you money when they were long retired or when they're passing away. This is a way that just a small down payment amount in many cases could make the difference in your life big time. And if they still decide to not do it, again, don't be too upset with them, because like Rob said, they grew up with a certain mentality that was ingrained in them through their education system, was to pay, all debt was bad debt. And that's not necessarily the case. If it's an appreciating property and generating rental income, that's good debt. And if they're not willing to move forward, there might be someone else in your family or someone else that can work with you. Or for that matter, there are different ways to generate a little bit of extra income to be able to get you into that property. But yeah, it's so cut and dry. If you look at the stats about people that are between the ages of 25 and 40 and the net wealth that people have that own real estate versus the ones that don't, yeah, there's a way to become a millionaire without owning real estate, but it's a lot harder. Like I like it simple, and I'll follow the simple path almost every time.
So what do you think you hear more? Do you think you hear more that that people don't have the time to invest, or that it's too risky? Like those are the kind of the two things that block people from getting started. So because you talk about this as like a part-time thing.
Yeah.
Right?
And yeah,
so
the time
what do you say to those people that
go ahead, let's address them. Let's address them both. That's a great question, Rob. And don't have the time. I always call a little bit BS on that, because again, if it's done properly, it's going to take you some time in the front end. But it's amazing how so many people can tell you the goings on of their favorite reality show or the Toronto Maple Leafs in the playoffs, and they know every single statistic that every player has done of their team and the opposing team, and can tell you and talk an hour about the current playoff system. And but yet they don't have the time to spend educating themselves on real estate. Now, obviously, the people that are listening to this podcast have sort of already understood the value of listening to extra education, but many people just don't do it. So that's the first one. I call BS on that, because there is time to spend on educating, and if you buy the right type of properties, you still have the ability of making this into that part-time job that can make you a millionaire. As far as the risk, this is something I love to share. I use financial institutions like banks as an example, and let's go over what a bank will do right now. If I'm a first-time home buyer and looking to buy my first property, they will give me an interest mortgage of 2-3% on up to 90 to 95% leveraged property. You have to ask yourself, why would the banks do that? Why would they do that? Like, why would they give you essentially almost an interest-free loan on almost the entire purchase of the property? And the answer is that it's such a risk-adverse investment for them that they can use the leveraging of 90% plus on a property and not be worried that there's going to be a foreclosure. And you have to sometimes use stats, because a friend of a friend, they got over leveraged and they lost their money, and that scares people. But let me use the real numbers. In Ontario is a good example. Now, to be honest, these stats are at the early part of COVID, and so the stats are a little skewed right now because a lot of people deferred some mortgages. But in around early last year, a stat came out that was showing that in all of Ontario, there were just over 1,000 properties that were in arrears in their mortgages. And arrears means 3 months or more of missed payments. And that doesn't mean they're all going to lose their house, but it just means that they were in arrears. So that represents less than 1 in 1,000 houses with mortgages are even behind their payments. So the reality is that there are very few foreclosures. There are very few people that have lost their income. And if you buy smartly and buy with guys like Sandy and Rob, you're going to buy the right type of property that's going to cash flow or at least cover all its expenses. And even if there is a market correction of a few percent, it's not a big deal. And if you're worried about rent not being paid, buying a quality property, you're not going to have vacancy. I know hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of investors, and I don't know anyone who's done a long-term buy and hold that's really lost any money. That's a good feeling.
Yeah, the long term with the longer term outlook is really hard to screw it up. You could buy way over what the market is bearing and still be, fast forward, if it's a 5-year, 10-year outlook, you're definitely still you're gonna make it up and be fine. It's the shorter term stuff or the developments, flips and stuff that do get a little more risky, like you mentioned, and potentially you could lose money. Even then, a little bit of knowledge and stuff goes a long ways there, and the right team around you. But it is. The easy way is definitely buy and hold, thinking long term, and I agree with buying great areas. You do get way higher tenants profiles that are just much easier to handle. Let's talk about it from a business perspective. You talk about buying and owning real estate. Thinking of it more of a business. What's that really mean when you that mindset? What's that look like?
Yeah, again, we talk about buying a rental, and it's just sort of people don't think of it like a business. And so I, in my book, I sort of say, if it looks like a duck and quacks like a duck and walks like a duck, it's a duck. In this case, it's it has revenue like a business. It has expenses like a business. It's a business. If you buy a rental property, it is a business, and you are responsible for ensuring that the income is in maintaining or even increasing. You're responsible for maintaining and understanding the expenses. And you've got assets like a business. You've got to keep that asset running like a business. So by creating systems in place and treating your property portfolio, whether it's one property or a million properties, if you treat it like a business, you'll be a lot further along in the process. And again, it doesn't have to be a full-time business. It could be that part-time business. Like I know people that are in their 20s and 30s that are making freaking scrunchies on the side and selling them on what are Etsy or Bitsy or whatever the thing is. And I'm investing in real estate, and that's my part-time job. I don't want to be an Uber driver. I want to have something that's actually lucrative. So my business, I'm responsible for is I'm ensuring that the asset is in great condition. If we do regular maintenance checks on our property on a 6-month basis. We're doing everything from ensuring that the smoke detector batteries are there, that the filters on the furnaces are doing well. We do a visual inspection of the property to make sure there isn't anything going on. The biggest thing we're always focused on is water prevention. If there's a leaky something or other, we're maintaining it, and we're not letting things defer. Meanwhile, we're treating our clients with the utmost respect, and I think of my tenants as clients. We treat them with respect. If they have any concerns or issues, we deal with them right away. Keep in mind, these people are paying, like if you're paying, what's some of the rent now, up to $1,800 a month or even more, they're spending $20,000 a year. They're paying you $20,000 a year. It might be a good idea to sort of listen to their concerns from time to time. And so we treat them with respect, and we ensure that they're taken care of well. We make sure the house is taken care of well. And we just follow a checklist of things that we've created and we talk about in the book. And as long as we're doing these things on a semi-annual basis, or in some cases an annual basis, we're doing okay. And that's just treating it like a business. And that also includes the paperwork as well. We do our bookkeeping and such like that, because again, it's a business.
So now, Michael, you're talking like you're in there checking those smoke detector batteries. Are you actually the one going around doing this still, or what's the deal there?
There's a quote that again I talk about is money allows you the ability to do things you don't want, and I don't like doing much of anything. So, and that's a Groucho Marx quote, actually. Is so money comes in handy because I was able to do it. But the one thing I do is don't hire some lackey that hasn't and got any skill set. If it's a property manager that you trust, great. But there's the one like in my case, my wife Lisa is the one who does most of the property management because she's simply really good at it. And I'm not really good at property management. That's not my skill set. But yeah, we will check them on a semi-regular basis because you get it. There's nothing that can affect your business more than just simply taking a look at your property every 6 months and just saying, uh-oh, something's really changed, and being able to course correct before things get a lot worse. If you've got, especially if you're in a secondary or tertiary market, and you've got a secondary or tertiary tenant, or you're dealing with student rentals, checking out your property every once in a while, like you've got millions of dollars invested in these properties, maybe doesn't hurt to pop in every once in a while, just to at least drive by and sort of say, yeah, it's still standing. So.
Okay, that's good. No, I was just curious because I know you do work with a good property management company, so you're not opposed to doing that. You just happen to have somebody, your wife Lisa, who is actually good at it, and I suppose doesn't mind doing that kind of work.
Yeah, and but again, no matter how busy you are, there might be things that are more pressing on an ongoing basis, but popping into your properties every 6 months just to ensure that that the house isn't blowing up is probably not too much of a stretch of what you need to do. And again, it's and in many cases these tenants are so happy to see us. Obviously not in the last year or so with COVID. They're like, they treat you like you're a leper. But yeah, it's in many cases they're happy to see you. And here's the thing that's really cool about these quality properties is we'll ask them, is there anything that's wrong with the place? They say, no, it's fine. And then we sort of press them a little bit more. Are you sure there's nothing that's been bugging you? I say, well, yeah, there's something, but I didn't want to bother you with it. It's so amazing when you're dealing with a quality tenant. They almost don't even want to bother you. So those people that think, oh, I'm going to get these midnight phone calls on a regular basis, it's the opposite. We almost have to pry issues out of them. Like we had a situation last year where the fridge was positioned in a way where the front door kept opening and all their food was spoiling. And so all we did was we lifted up the legs of the front so that the thing was now tilted back the other way. And they were so appreciative of the fact that we brought in some, because we thought it was a more serious issue than that. And all it was we lifted the legs. And they said, oh my God, I'm so glad. And we've been spending hundreds of dollars extra in food because it's all been spoiling. And so but they didn't want to bother us. And that's the kind of tenants that we typically have. They're happy to live there. They take care of the place and we treat them well. And if there's any issues they have whatsoever, we take care of it.
All right, Michael. So we're here today to talk mainly about this book that you've just put out. So let's talk about that. Tell us a little bit about it.
Yeah, I'm going to give you a shameless plug here. Here's the book here, Armchair Real Estate Millionaire. And so a lot of the things that we talked about today already is some of the stuff that we did in the book. When I became an investor many years ago, or even before that, I used to imagine the wealthy people were this rich, exclusive club that they wouldn't want someone like me as part of. And, if I started trying to make steps to move forward, there'd be somebody pushing me down. And that was this image that we had of rich people. But what I found was the exact opposite. The people that had more success than me, they would not just push me back, but they did the opposite. They were actually, in many cases, putting their hand down and bringing me up a step or two on the rung of success. And over and over again, I had mentors that helped me along the process and brought me to that next step in the ladder. And that helped form a lot of my concepts from today. I don't know anyone in real estate today that came up with their ideas. In many cases, it's regurgitated from other other ventures or other investors in years past. But yeah, as I kept growing, I saw the success that I was having, and in many cases, it came from my mentors. So I always thought that if I reached a point in my life where I had the level of success that I wanted to have, I felt that in my own sort of folksy way, I could share my story and my successes and my ventures along the process, and sort of introduce real estate investing for another generation and sort of help them up a rung or two along the ladder. And as I saw a lot of these books that come out and these podcasts and investor groups, I find that most of the people that are up there speaking tend to be people that are working on these incredible, unbelievable deals that are multi-million-dollar projects. And although they're really fascinating, it's kind of out of the reach of the vast majority of the people that are just thinking of getting started. It's kind of overwhelming. And so again, I sort of mentioned at the outset, I kind of zigged where everyone else zagged. And I wanted to come up with a concept where just a couple of properties, and some of the success stories I included in my book are people that have as little as 2 or 3 properties, and how it's changed their life in a really profound way. And that was the genesis of the book.
So
Awesome.
is it mostly a case study book? Is that what you're saying?
I have 6 success stories in the book, absolutely, but that's just more of an aside. I go through on different chapters, and again, some of the things we talked about was treat your business like a business. Talking about the millennial profit, where we talk, we go through that. At the beginning of the book, it is a bit more of a reference. We talk about determining what a quality market is, but there's a lot more than that. It's including some neat, fun stories, some anecdotes. Again, I'm a storyteller. You both have been on investor tours of mine back in the day, and that's just how I like to sort of share my stories and successes of others, is through stories.
So the person that's out there listening or watching and wants to kind of take the lazy way to being a millionaire, this might be a book, which I don't know many people that wouldn't like that. This is probably a great book for them to pick up and learn a little simpler method of getting there that doesn't overcomplicate things and make it all crazy and unattainable. But a lot of people can do this. This is not something that is out of the reach for probably most of the population really in Canada. I think has capabilities to either do this over the next 10 years or maybe even a little bit faster. But that's what I like about it. It's simple, because we overcomplicate this stuff way too much.
Way too much. Yeah, again, for anyone listening, Sandy, Rob, and I, we're never going to throw a 90-mile-an-hour fastball. We're not going to develop a cure for cancer. I don't think any one of us are going to develop an app that's going to become a multi-million-dollar app. Yet this is something that, honestly, with a little bit of skill, and we're not even talking a lot of skill, you could start taking action and making some real differences in your financial life, for sure.
And generations to come, because that's the one thing for kids and certainly any kids, I don't have any yet, but certainly any kids I'm going to have are going to have a big challenge to get into the real estate market if we can't maybe set them up, or at least if not set them up on our own, just at least teach them some of the stuff that we might know and be able to learn, so that they can go out and do it. But we know the numbers, right? The real estate market's only going up and up and up around anywhere in Ontario, at least. The average or median incomes are not necessarily even close to in line with that. So it's not getting easier.
Yeah, and again, we talk about the prices going up and up and up, and that's something I talk about in the book a lot as well. Is people that just assume that prices always go up. I call that it's a myth, and the reason why it always goes up in Ontario is we're seeing an increased population. And you might like or not like the immigration that's been happening in our country, in our province, but what it's done is we're just simply adding more people to the existing number of houses that are available. And much like the game of musical chairs, if there's now more people than there are chairs available, the chairs become more and more valuable. And in the case of real estate, that's exactly what's happened. You look in markets, and I'll pick a couple as examples, like Detroit, Michigan, for example. The reason why the prices never surge there, or for that matter, Newfoundland. I love Newfoundland. It's a beautiful, beautiful province. but the prices are virtually given away there for housing, and you can't even build a house for the price of that. And you say, well, why is that? Well, there's simply more supply than there is demand. And so just going over the economics of supply and demand, it may sound complicated, but when you break it down, it does make a lot of sense. And for those that don't know, the Toronto market, again, for those of you listening that are in the GTA, you maybe don't even appreciate the growth that we're seeing in this market. Toronto in the last year and a half grew at a rate so rapidly that the 3 fastest growing US cities combined equal the growth of what's happening in Toronto. And that's just not, obviously that's unprecedented. And so that's why the housing prices, Sandy, are growing at such a rapid rate. Is if you keep adding that many people at that fast of a ratio, like they're adding, like I've seen 70, 80,000 people are being added to the GTA every single year. In a 10-year period, that's, we're coming up on 1 million more people. They're talking about in 30 years, the population of Toronto at its current rate will be at the rate of Los Angeles. It's just unbelievable. And so that's why things are growing. If all of a sudden we have a zombie apocalypse and everyone wants to move out of the GTA or they all, disappear, we're going to see the housing prices fall. But it's until that happens, as long as the population continues to rise, I'm very bullish on this market.
So as long as there's no zombie apocalypse, we're okay.
Yeah, and obviously we came close in 2020, but even that didn't. Again, there you go. Like Toronto kind of suffered a little bit on the condos because nobody wanted a condo during COVID, but detached homes surged, especially in the suburbs, because all of a sudden demand just skyrocketed. And I don't know how many American listeners we have, but I'm kind of concerned about New York City. New York City has seen a massive population drop. And even though it's the largest city in the United States by far, unless the population comes back after COVID, you're going to see housing prices there really suffer as a result of it. Even though the prices have been going up for 2 generations, they're going to suffer if people don't move back into the city. So that's I have a chapter in my book, chapter 3, where I talk about becoming an industry insider, and we talk about this in equity businesses, where if you're an insider trader, that's considered some illegal thing. But in real estate, becoming an insider trader just simply means you've done a lot of research and you know what the market entails, and then you could make informed decisions. Like the 3 of us, we're not that smart, but we got lucky because we bought investment property in markets that are growing. I'd like most of the people listening to this show to be lucky in 10 years.
Mm-hmm. So is the book out now, and where do people get it?
Yeah, it came out on May 11th, and it's available. You can find it in Amazon, and we're increasing the number of locations for that. Or you can go on my website, armchairrealestatemillionaire.com, and check it out. That our site's getting more and more ready for that. And yeah, it's but Amazon is where most of the people are getting it. It's exciting to say, hey, my book's available on Amazon. That's kind of fun.
Yeah, congratulations, by the way, on that. Hold the book up again. Let me see the cover again.
Yeah, so it's got the Armchair Real Estate Millionaire, and then if you're sitting there anyway, you might as well build your wealth, and then an actual armchair, and so like I don't take myself too seriously. I have caricatures of myself in the book at all times, and making, I don't know if you can see that. But well,
that should be the cover. Like, yeah, I think you got to be on the cover.
Yeah, I know. I was going to
an empty chair. Someone's got to be filling that chair.
Yeah, it's but it could be you. It could be you. It could be anybody that could fill in that chair.
That's true enough. Maybe have somebody there with a little your face here.
I like it. See, I need you as my marketing guy there, Rob. Come on.
Yeah,
but yeah, it's a very doable thing. Like I was that C/D student in high school that basically I was the one that when they were talking about average grade point average, I was the one that was helping to boost it up, sort of, or like where I was keeping it down so that others can be above the average. So, it doesn't take the A students with the Mensa degrees and stuff like that to get there. It just an action taker who again, following the research, following the numbers. Do your own research, guys. It's not that complicated. And follow some of the instructions in the book, and that market could be one that I've never heard of. And actually, one of my goals is I'd love to one day hear somebody who bought my book in a town I've never been to, and they invest in a market I've never been to, or maybe never even heard of, and then they reach back to me and say, you know what, I followed the teachings of your book, and I'm doing well with that. And that's the goal. If anybody says the only good market is X, they're simply, I wouldn't trust them. There are great markets around the world. It's just follow the market fundamentals and find the right type of tenant profile, and you can do really, really well.
Now, one thing, obviously we want to encourage everyone to go grab the book. I think it's a really simple and easy way to learn and grow and start building some wealth. What's something, maybe it's from your book, maybe not, but what's one piece of advice or info that you've gotten over time that's really, benefited you, or you really like to reminisce about, or you've learned a lot from, or a quote, something out there that you've learned from?
Oh, you're throwing me on the spot here. I'm trying to think. Boy, oh boy. Let me think. All right, let's come back to that. I actually made some notes about stuff like that, and I knew you'd come up with some random question.
You got that Groucho Marx one, which I liked a lot.
Yeah,
that's pretty good.
Yeah,
it's. Let me think here. Okay. Well, here's I'm a big believer in some of the teachings of Jim Rohn, and Jim Rohn is one of the best business philosophers I've ever felt, and the reality is that if you your education will make you the education you get will make you a living, but self-education can make you a fortune. And so spending that extra time and that extra effort to self-educate, and not the stuff that you're going to learn in schools, but actually to move forward and to self-educate, can make a whole lot of difference in your life. And you have to have that $1 million mindset that you need to take. I found that to be so imperative. And honestly, I went my first 40 years of my life where, and maybe some of you guys can attest to this, but I'd go to a grocery store, and so I knew how much was in my bank account, and I actually used to keep a running tally of how much I was spending on a calculator, because I was afraid to show up at the till and put too much through, and then my money I got rejected, and I was in fear of that a lot. And it's funny how in 15 years your life can change so dramatically. But again, I was tight on cash. I really, really was. And then all of a sudden I started doing things differently and making a huge difference. And that was the one thing that real estate's allowed me to do. And I do encourage everybody to go to your local investment groups, because I could tell you that as great of my friends I had that I had growing up, I was sort of the average of my friends growing up, and in terms of wealth, in terms of skill set, in terms of job title, and then when I started hanging around with a different group of people, and all of a sudden I started to see a bunch of people that had $1 million portfolios, it became more natural to do stuff like that. So I'm not saying dump all your friends, but I'm saying start to embrace people that have had different levels of success, and things are going to start to fall into place for you, because it just becomes natural to do it.
Very good. I like that a lot. So, Michael, what is the best way that people can get in touch with you?
Yeah, so on the website, info at armchairrealestatemillionaire.com. We're still an active realtor in the Durham region and through Doors to Wealth. But again, Rob is a fantastic guy too. So if you're working with Mr. Break and the Breakthrough Group, then by all means go that route. But we've got a really good, successful team out in the Durham region, and we go out east towards Belleville and Trenton and Coburg and Port Hope for those that are interested. But info at armchairrealestatemillionaire.com would be the best way.
Right on. Well, Michael, thank you. It's always a pleasure to talk to you. It's been too long, I think.
Too long. Yeah.
Yeah, we
And,
got. We'll have you on again. I guess if it's gonna maybe before the 150 more episodes, maybe a little sooner, but.
Yeah. So
It's
what
been
you're
fun.
saying then is I was on one of the very first episodes, and then I'm in the last one where Rob's Canadian resident. That's exciting.
That's right.
well, still going to be a Canadian resident, but
No, you're a Canadian citizen. You won't be a Canadian resident.
fair enough.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The plan is to be back and forth if, COVID permitting, I guess. So we'll see how that goes. But the plan is to be back and forth.
I'm so proud of you, man. I really am. All right. I know you got to go, but why don't you share what was your goal when you wanted to? Do you remember sharing the goal about wanting to take a vacation?
Well, yeah, that is. I mean, I think we've talked about that before, but I mean, there was a couple of reasons for this, and money wasn't necessarily the first one. But I'd never taken a vacation anywhere before I started working with you, Michael. Actually, yeah, that was the very first family vacation we ever took. Was probably 8 months into becoming a realtor on your team. So yeah, that was a good goal that we managed to accomplish, and then we just snowballed from there.
Yeah.
Now you're going permanent vacation, family vacation.
That's what it is.
Permanent vacation. I don't plan on working at all. Not even.
Yeah.
I told Rob, I said one day, this was probably 8 years ago, I said one day I could see the two of us sitting by a poolside getting fat together, drinking margaritas. And he said, I like that goal. And so I can tell you, I'm following the armchair mindset and getting fatter. So, I need Rob to
I was just going to say, now we're both working on getting skinnier. It's pretty easy to go the other way right now. That's for sure.
Yeah.
Okay. Sandy, how can people get in touch with you?
289-389-6846 or sandy@mckayrealtynetwork.com.
And people can reach me at rob@mrbreakthrough.ca. Well, thanks everyone for joining us again today. We'll see you next time.